Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chalk Talk. I am your host, Kim Davis, and boy, what a week we have had since we were last together in this format. I'm super excited that you could be a part of this week's show. We always get in Astros, right? We're going to put a pin in that because I've got a super special guest joining me. And then we, of course, talk a lot about the Texans because it's that time of year. We'll do that today. And we talk Rockets. We're going to hold it off a little bit on the Rockets. It's early. They're young. There's not a whole lot to say about them. And I don't want to take a lot of time up talking about the Rockets just yet. We're covering them. We're talking about them. So follow me on all of the platforms and you'll hear from Coach Silas and some of the key players. But hey, how about those Houston Astros? 4 World Series appearances in 6 years, right? So we're going to talk today about what they've done to this point, and really about what needs to happen for them to get a chip, for them to get another champ, for them to get a championship, and also so they can do it for Dusty. Before we do that, we have to always make sure to let you know about the people who make the show possible. This month's show is still being sponsored by Affordable Painters. That's Hillary Como. All of his information will be down below in the notes. If you're in the Houston area, he's your guy, right? And not only will he do painting, commercial painting, inside, outside, it's also, he'll make you laugh. Now you're saying, you know what, Kim, I don't want to laugh. I want my house or my business painted. I'm just telling you, it's an added bonus. Hillary Como with Affordable Painters. Also, this time of year, we're getting ready to kind of jump back into flu season, right? They think the COVID may kind of make another spike. So one of the best things you can do is to protect your immune system. You've heard us talk about it here on the show a number of times. Turmeric is a great herb. It's good for you. And then there's a turmeric paste made by I Love Jinka, Kim and LJ Williams. If you are in the Houston area or south of Houston, all the way down to Lake Jackson, you can pick it up at HEB in the healthy living section. Of course, if you're not in the area, you can go to ilovejinka.com and order yours today. But here's where you find it if you are near HEB.
Here at HEB in the Healthy Living Department of Probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yeah. Look at that Jinka sale. Look at that Jinka.
And it's ilovejinka.com. They've got some big news coming up. They're about to go into the military. I think the Air Force and the Army, they'll be a part of those, their websites and the bases. So a lot of people are seeing the value in Jinka, and you can do the same by going to ilovejinka.com. All right, so we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to talk a little baseball with my guest who, at a very short notice, agreed to join me today. I can't believe it's actually his first time being a part of Chalk Talk. So we're going to make him our new baseball expert. Welcome, Jesus. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for the invitation, Kim. I really appreciate it. What a fun weekend, huh?
What a weekend. I can't believe this is our first time doing this. So as you were watching the games this weekend, first of all, before the Yankee series, did you think that there was a chance the Astros could sweep?
No, I picked the Astros in 6. But I will tell you, after the Astros won game 2, I approached one of my former New York colleagues when I worked in New York, and I said, do you think the Astros can sweep? And he says, I fully expect them to sweep. The Astros look so much better, and they appear to have taken the life out of the Yankees in game 2. And sure enough, game 3, they beat their best pitcher, and by game 4, they had no pitching left.
You know, you mentioned game 3. Those of us in Houston have, we know who Garrett Cole is. And you're right. He was the best they had. And for the Astros to get in and be able to beat Garrett Cole, I thought was pretty I thought at that point, maybe they can sweep. I thought, well, if not, maybe they'll do it in 5. But after they won game 3, I was with you. I thought a sweep was a real possibility. What is it that you think, Jesus, makes this Astros team so good?
Pitching. I think this is the best pitching staff the Astros have had since 2019. And I dare say they're better than 2019. This may be the best Astros pitching staff they've had since the 2005 Clemens, Oswalt, Pettit.
Mm.
They're just not the names that those guys were. But if you think about it, Verlander's going to win the Cy Young. He had a difficult starting game in the division series. He had a bit of a rough start in game one of the ALCS. But once he got rolling, he was just amazing. And then Fran Valdez is one of the best pitchers in baseball this year. And Christian Javier, how about that performance?
Wow.
You're just going to throw a guy who's only thrown 1 1/3 innings for you in the whole postseason, and he was just nails at Yankee Stadium. And then you have one of the biggest big game pitchers in Astros history coming in to pitch Game 4 in Lance McCullers. I mean, Lance McCullers, you want that guy on the mound. He's going to figure out a way to keep you in, to give you a chance to win, and that's exactly what he did.
It was almost, Jesus, like a clinic, right? It was a clinic. And here's the other thing that I find really fascinating is that this Astros team continues to win. I mean, the sweeps are, to me, not as big of a deal. It's just that they've won in ways that maybe we wouldn't always expect it. I mean, how about Jeremy Pena being the MVP of the ALCS? You see Chas McCormick come in and give you some offense. You get Yuli Gurriel. I mean, of course, seeing Bregman really look like the Bregman that you expect him to be. You've done it without Yordan Alvarez in this series and Jose Altuve, who's warming up but hasn't quite gotten there yet. I think that speaks volumes about what this team could do.
Absolutely. The fact that they swept the Mariners without getting a hit from Jose Altuve was very impressive. Alvarez, it was Pena and Alvarez setting each other up in against Seattle. Bregman had an argument could have been made that Bregman was the true ALCS MVP. He had that type of performance. So you had two guys who were worthy of the MVP in the ALCS, and that's a good recipe, right? And then you had Chas McCormick coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You just, and Gurriel coming essentially after, he told me and told several of us, he just has a new playoff chip. As soon as the regular season was over, he caught his breath and said, I have another chance. This is what October is what matters. And he's the big game guy, 38 years old, playing like he's 32. And you could tell, this might be the last series of his career. And he's going to make sure that it's the best one yet. He never won a title in Cuba, came to the U.S., won a World Series in 2017. He's done nothing but win in the United States, and he's hungry. He knows how to win. But, I mean, think about it. Yordan Alvarez didn't perform like he did in the division series. Jose Altuve, the last two games, starting to look like Jose Altuve. So, and Dusty Baker, you were there when he said, when they asked him early on before the series about Jose Altuve, and he says, to be honest, we've not been on all cylinders all year.
Yep.
That's the scary thing about these Astros is that they have not been all on at the same time. But you can do that, and you could win games like that because of pitching. And Hector Neris, which is the correct way to pronounce his name, regardless of how everybody pronounces it. Hector Neris, Montero, Brian Abreu coming out of nowhere, talking about nowhere. Yeah. Presley. I mean, you got the Dominicans and Presley. And obviously Stanek pitched as well, but Dusty Baker, and I had a tweet kind of like as a kind of like a in the face to all the people who have been criticizing Dusty. A lot of clueless people have been talking trash about Dusty. But game 3, Johnny B. Baker won that game.
Yes.
It moves. I mean, Mancini, Vasquez, pulling guys at the right time, sticking with guys at the right time. The way he managed the bullpen, the way he managed that entire game, everything worked. Think about that. Like that's
Yeah.
the guys have to perform. You're only as good as as the guys you put out there and how they perform. But the fact of the matter is that everybody's comfortable with Martin Maldonado behind the plate. So do you really want to move him take him out? And yes, and he did it. He put in Vasquez, and Vasquez delivered, called a great game.
Called a great game.
Great, 2-run hit. Every move he made in that game helped the Astros win Game 3. So I think the do it for Dusty chance yesterday for a guy, like when you're in this business, you're not a cheerleader. There's no cheering in the press box. But I will tell you, as a person who loves history, who loves covering history, I so want to see Dusty Baker win a World Series because that's the best story. That is triumph. That is Black history. That is like this guy is one of the greatest people in baseball history. When you think of what he's seen, from Hank Aaron to Christian Javier.
Right. And that stint with Barry Bonds.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I mean, like, just like you talk about Barry Bonds, but I'm talking about just the whole arc of his career, from being a player with Hank Aaron under Aaron's wing to this guy who's bringing Pozole to Jose Urquidy, the culture that he brings to this Astros organization, how he salvaged their reputation. Even people who hate the Astros, love
like Dusty. Yes.
So that's, to me, that's very important. And I'm from LA. We at our Esquina, we had this for Cinco de Mayo. We had this kind of like honorary Mexicans, and I claimed Dusty as the only Mexican manager in the majors because he gets it. Very few managers in Major League Baseball truly gets it. And this is the guy who has more Latino coaches than anybody else in Major League Baseball. He has a Mexican American, he has a Puerto Rican, he has a Venezuelan, he has an African American, he has white dudes, and he and I talked about it. He's like, young guys, old guys. This Astros coaching staff under Dusty Baker represents the best of America. Us all working together with the same common goal. And it's like in the past, you could wonder, like, okay, who's making the decisions?
Yeah.
Because the Astros with Jeff Luhnow, they made a lot of decisions to help AJ Hinch shine. And I'm sure that James Click and his staff are making a lot of decisions for Dusty Baker, but this is a baseball guy who manages the old school way. And I think for baseball history, it would be a perfect way for him to seal his Hall of Fame resume.
You make some great points, and I want to back up for a second because I was so excited that you came on. I didn't really properly introduce you. I want to talk a little bit about our Esquina. You've got a lot of baseball history. You've been a beat writer for multiple teams. You've been president of the Baseball Writers Association. So, you have a lot of credentials, which is one of the things I love is that the game of baseball. When you and I chat, sometimes we talk about how maybe some of the people that cover the game don't really know it as well. And that's okay, as long as they make way for the people that do. But let's talk about our Esquina, the publication that you started, what it is and why you started it.
Yeah, so I founded our Esquina after moving back from Houston. I was insane. I left the Houston Chronicle after 15 years to be a lead sports columnist. at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And while there, I was also kind of double dipping as the written content director for another publication that and I figured, like, why am I helping somebody else build a company when I could build my own? So we amplify Latino voices in art, sports, and culture for an English preferred audience. And so we have a website, we have a podcast network. We're working on a couple documentaries, on one of them on a guy who might win the Cy Young Award this year. And that's what we do. We like one of the stories that I enjoyed writing the most this year was from the game one of the division series, and I was the only person who spoke to Agustin Alvarez and his wife Jordan's parents.
Mm-hmm.
They watched their son walk off the first playoff game that they were able to see, and that's, everybody who works at our Esquina. You don't have to be Latino, but you have to be bilingual. And although all our stories are in English, we did have a partnership with the Major League Baseball Players Association, in which they ran some of our work in Spanish. But I take pride. I've covered Major League Baseball since 1997 in New York, LA. Started my career in LA. Went to New York, covered the Mets when they went to the World Series in 2000, and in 99 when they went to the NLCS as the lead beat writer over there for the Star Ledger. Then came to Houston, and I'm more infamous in Houston as the guy who wrote the Tombstone story that the 2005 Astros dead, even though I had nothing to do with that graphic. But I love baseball. Baseball is my love. Soccer is my passion, and like our Esquina, it's the only outlet in America that pretty much focuses everything on amplifying the diversity of Latino culture. Like for instance, during this ALCS and NLCS, we had a Dominican in Philadelphia, we had an Ecuadorian in New York, we had a Mexican American in Houston, we had a Mexican American in San Diego, and I take pride that our Esquina does more work on Latinas than anybody else in America. So I think we're doing something that there's a market for, and we're growing. But thank you for asking. I appreciate it. But I love baseball. I love covering history. I've covered four no-hitters, 2 of them at Yankee Stadium, 2 of them here at Minute Maid Park, 1 perfect game. So I love baseball. I've seen a lot of baseball, I guess.
So, Jesus, you said something. I'm talking to Jesus Ortiz from our Esquina. The website is online. I encourage you to check it out. We here at Chalk Talk like to make sure that you have all the great information, right? Places where you can get stories that you won't find other places. I think our Esquina is one of those places. You mentioned history and Dusty being history. And I think that's important to talk about when you mentioned his staff and the diversity of his staff. I want to ask you something else about his staff, because when the pitching coach left after last season, there were many who were like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And what's happened? They've continued to just get even better. And that's not a knock on him, but I think it does speak to basically, in a nutshell, who Dusty had in the bullpen, right? This pitching staff is just so good. And I listened to a guy like Framber Valdez who talks about how he worked on his challenges off the field, right? He worked on his challenges, and not that he was getting in trouble, but he worked on his mindset, and he worked with the sports psychologist so that when he had an issue like he had in game 2, where he had an error and it ended up costing the team 2 runs, he was able to recover. He said in 2019, previously he would not have been able to come back for that. Just the growth of this young team. Is this the year? I listen to, I see all the stats, which I don't really buy a lot into, right? Like the previous teams that were had swept all the way through the divisional and the CS, they lose in the World Series. I just don't think that's the Astros story this year. I think this is the year.
I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the year because they've overcome so much. And I think this is the ye And I thought this before the ALCS and NLCS even started. I think that the American League is so much stronger than the National League this year. I think, I thought the Padres were going to win the NLCS, and probably because it tied in well with my assumptions. And I compared them to the 1998 Padres who went to New York and got swept by the Yankees. I really do. People I respect in the business, people who've covered baseball a long time, are predicting that the Astros will sweep through Philadelphia. The one thing that has to worry about the Astros is that they don't have any left-handed pitching, and Bryce Harper is just a horse. But I just don't think the Phillies have the pitching staff to run up against the Astros in a 7-game series. I think, everything has worked out well this year in a way that it worked against them last year. Last year, they got to the World Series and they had no pitching. They're like trying to do bullpen games because, Lance McCullers was out. They didn't have Verlander. Well, guess what? This year has been the direct opposite. They keep buying themselves time. This is the year that you really need extra rest for Justin Verlander. And guess what? You keep getting it. Justin Verlander is going to take the mound for game 1 on some very good rest. And so that's a good sign. Framber Valdez is going to be rested. The bullpen that you've been running out pretty much every game in the ALCS is rested. Everybody that you need is rested. The only thing that's gone badly for them in the pitching staff was champagne bottles hitting your number 3 starter. And that's a self-inflicted, injury. And he recovered. So think about it. A guy who has won 3 World Series games hasn't even been needed. Jose Urquidy has not thrown a pitch in the playoffs.
That's right.
I would expect him, because he does well against lefties. He might make some appearances, but Verlander, Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Lance McCullers. That's a good 4-man rotation. And then if you need somebody on short rest, you have Christian Javier, who has a live arm, who's rested. I love it. Pitching wins. Every team that I think this is my 15th World Series that I will cover. And pitching has always been the dominant factor. The Braves won last year because they had more pitching.
Yeah.
In a series that really had no pitching, right? Neither team really covered itself in glory with pitching last year. But the Astros just didn't have Verlander. You didn't have McCullers. If they had McCullers last year, they win the World Series.
And in 2019, it was pitching. And I will say that, I'm one who has been on record as saying it was pitching that lost that series. And it was A.J. Hinch that lost Game 7 in terms of how he managed it, how he managed the pitching to me. And so I know that pitching is important. They've got to hit. What we've seen is that when they need to get hits from whoever they need to get it from, it happens. I believe that Jose Altuve is going to continue. He's obviously seeing the ball better. He's made good contact. He's got a couple hits, and I expect him to, continue in that vein in the World Series. And also Yordan Alvarez. I think he will, but if he's not hitting home runs, he at least is he's getting on base and getting some action on the base path and some RBIs.
Yeah, and I remind everybody this. I was growing very frustrated at people who don't watch baseball who were talking a bunch of trash about Jose Altuve.
Yeah.
It's not easy to hit in the playoffs. You're not facing the number 4 guy. You're facing 1s and 2s and 3s. Okay, you're facing the best relievers who are rested because there's days off. You rarely have to pitch 3 days in a row, which in a regular season, chances are you're not going to see the best relievers 3 days in a row. I cite the St. Louis Cardinals as an example. Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, one of those two men is going to be the National League MVP this year. They were a combined 1 for 15 while being eliminated by the Phillies in the wild card race. It's not easy to hit in the playoffs. So Aaron Judge, 62 crickets in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not easy. But if there's one guy I would bet money on is Jose Altuve, because he's a hitter. People are saying, "Oh, I can't believe he's swinging at these balls out of the strike zone." What the hell did he hit against Garrett Cole?
Right.
A ball out of the strike zone. That's what he hits.
Yeah.
He doesn't. So he's getting hot. They have that lineup is loaded. That Jeremy Pena and Dusty Baker, by the way, his lineup management is perfect, because think about this. You're facing Jose Altuve right off the bat, and you have to be fine to get him out. So the pitchers are throwing stress, even when he's struggling, they're throwing stressful pitches. And then you think, I could breathe a little bit, and then you breathe a little bit, and then Pena knocks you around. And but you have to give Pena something to hit, because who's protecting him? Jordan Alvarez. So it's perfect. And people who don't watch baseball don't realize, like, Pena's in a perfect spot, because he's going to get pitched to hit because people want to get him out. And Altuve, even when he's struggling, gives you a pretty decent at bat, and puts the last name on that number 27 jersey carries weight.
Yeah.
And then Bregman, by the way, God bless him. Like, okay, walk Alvarez if you want. And then Bregman slaps you around. And then Kyle Tucker, who has the most beautiful swing in baseball. That's a Ted Williams swing right there. You know what I mean? Like this. And I think, the Phillies have a great lineup. They're a great team. They're much better than their regular season record shows. So it's going to be a great, tough series. I fully expect it to be won by the Astros, perhaps in 5, if not a sweep. But I wouldn't be surprised if this goes 7 games either.
One of the questions, it was one of the days that we were talking to Dusty, and somebody asked him about why he had Pena in the 2-hole in the lineup. And he said, well, that's what he wants to hit. Then he went on to say all the things you just said in terms of explaining, he's had a great rookie season, but putting him in that spot kind of protects him. He's not going to see as much of the breaking stuff if you have him someplace else. So it's a good spot for him to be in, and it's a spot that he feels good in. Can we just talk about Jeremy Pena? And I know that there are people who are like, oh, you don't miss Carlos. Well, you miss Carlos just because of who Carlos was to the team. But talk about not missing a huge beat in terms of production, to have Pena come in and just get better all season, right? We knew that he was offensively, he had some stuff to offer, and he's gotten better defensively. You talk about him as a Gold Glove. He was the MVP of the ALCS. He's not afraid of the moment, and it's just good to see him perform so well.
Absolutely. He's a guy who was raised right. The way he's not a 21-year-old rookie. He's not a 23-year-old rookie. This dude walked in as a man. And part of the reason, because he was hurt. People forget that he would have been up in the majors last year if he hadn't gotten hurt in 2020. And he saw it all last year while being on the taxi squad. He came in, and I still remember that March morning where Dusty Baker called him El Nino, and then we walk in the spring training clubhouse, and he says, "Nah, I don't like El Nino because that's Fernando Tatis's nickname." And he sure, wanted to get out of the Carlos Correa shadow. He just said, "I want to make my own name for myself," and boy, has he done it. But he gives you professional at bats. I was surprised, quite honestly, that he was a Gold Glove finalist because I was so spoiled by how good Carlos Correa was defensively. And when a friend of mine said, I think he's better than Carlos Correa, I kind of scoffed. I'm like, you're crazy. But the people who judge the Gold Glove, who actually have way more experience than I do, real experience in quantifying defense and defensive excellence, they give him that credit. So he's done it all, and he's done it in a way that it's been quiet. He knows his place. He's I'm gonna, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong this, but I think that he could be for Houston what we all expected Carlos to be for Houston, in that, like, this is in a predominantly Latino and Black city. You have a very good-looking Afro-Latino who is bilingual and very smart in both languages. Man, this guy right now, he's pitching Arandas. Taquerías Aranda. That guy, by the end of the playoffs, and HEB, by the end of the playoffs, he's going to be able to pitch so many more things because he, good-looking, talented, successful.
And he's humble. I think that's the other thing that connects with people. He's so humble. And Carlos was great, too. I mean, it was hard. Who didn't like Los? So he is all of those things, but in his own way. And I love the fact that he has been able to find his way coming in at the same position, right? And the things that he's done, he's not flippant about it. He seems confident in what he's doing, but he has a sense of humility that's really attractive. It's like you can't help but really embrace him. And I want to say this to you. You tweeted something in one of the games about making sure with his name in terms of
with
putting
the tilde.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, okay, how do I do that? So I know I do it. It's easy to do on my phone because I just hold it down. But when I'm at a game, I'm usually tweeting from my laptop. So I'm like Googling, how do I do this? Because I thought, I know the importance of that, right? And I was so glad that you said that, so that when I'm on my laptop, I make it a point I had to go find a way to do it, but I got it figured out. And but it's important to, in terms of recognizing, calling somebody the name, spelling it the way it should be spelled, and explaining, like, when you don't spell it this way, this is what it means. So I thought that was really cool. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I fought that argument for over 2 decades, and I make the joke that you have to know the difference between your year and your anus, because if you don't put the tilde on año, it's spelled anus. So that's, the ñ is so important, and peña without the ñ means grief, which is giving opponents a lot of grief. But right. Also, I think, I just think it's important that we pronounce these names correctly, that we acknowledge their names and write them correctly. But I think going back to just his modesty.
Yeah.
I love Carlos. They even share the same birthday. None of us had the right to expect him
to be this good
shortstop the way he did, and he's been excellent. And if not for Julio Rodriguez, who is like a once in a generation type Ken Griffey type guy, Peña would probably win the AL Rookie of the Year. But what an amazing rookie class this year in baseball. But if I were voting, and I'm not, I voted for the MVP this year, but he would have gotten a place on my Rookie of the Year ballot. It kind of reminds me of 2001 when Albert Pujols was 1 and Roy Oswalt was number 2 on my ballot. Like, somebody who's really, really good. He's just been overshadowed. But in Houston, He's going to win a World Series this year, I fully believe.
Jesus Ortiz, I appreciate you, my friend. It's been great. We'll have to do it again. We'll come back either during the series or after and talk about it all. I appreciate the fact that you just know so much stuff I don't know. I can ask you. So thank you for that. And thank you for reminding us about the history, especially about the staff that Dusty has assembled. I admit it. I mean, I am objective. There's no cheering in the press box, but I am truly a Dusty Baker fan, and I was before he ever joined the Astros, staff. So can't wait for game 1 on Friday. I think it's interesting. Of course, the Phillies are yelling, "We want Houston." I think the Dusty influence keeps his team from buying into that. But when the series is over, like Maldi did last night, then yeah, you can say you want Houston, we got them. But going into it, they're not going to bite. They're going to be focused, and they're going to be ready to play.
Yeah, Dusty will have his guys ready. He'll have his guys loose. I talked to Russ Ortiz. Russ Ortiz and I do a podcast, and until now, Dusty Baker's most remembered in the World Series for handing Russ Ortiz that baseball in Anaheim, game 6 of the World Series, and Russ wrote a column last year on why he wants Dusty to win. All of baseball lifers want Dusty to win unless they're tied to the Phillies. He's done so much for baseball. His career is the baseball equivalent of Forrest Gump in baseball because he's touched so many different lives, so many different great moments. And you talk about you being a fan of Dusty for a long time. Obviously, we're not cheering in the press box. But I grew up in L.A., a Dodgers fan. So I've been cheering for Dusty and been a fan of Dusty for over 40 years, but don't tell anybody that.
Right. And he's overcome so much. Cancer, a stroke, right? When he says, I wake up every day and I say my prayers, I'm glad to be here. That's not just tongue in cheek. That's real for him. Yeah,
he's lived and seen so much, and the only people who don't appreciate Dusty, there aren't many in baseball, and the ones that don't, I just don't get it. I don't understand. I can't explain it, and nobody's been able to explain to me. And Dusty's coy. He's very smart. He's going to tell you what he wants to tell you because what's going to benefit his team. Mm-hmm. He's been protecting baseball players longer than some of his critics have been alive.
Right.
And I'll leave it at that.
And that's what Verlander said. I know he's got my back. And that's every player on this team will say the same thing. All right, Jesus, thank you so much. Remember, check out Esquina.com. You get some great content. I've been going to the website ever since I found out you had it. And so thank you for the work that you do. And I will see you on Friday, my friend.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. Be well.
All right, you too. All right, everybody. That was Jesus Ortiz. And I appreciate him joining me to talk baseball in a way that, beyond just somebody who is going out covering it, but has the history of really understanding the game. But that's what we do here in Chalk Talk, right? We bring you the experts and we bring you the pros. Take a short break now and remind you about the people who, of course, help make this show possible. We talked about Jinka earlier. Now it's time to talk about Kimmy Treats. As you are getting ready to watch the postseason, the World Series, we're already in postseason. Get you some Kimmy Treats. Go online to KimmyTreats.com and pick up your popcorn. I'm going to be adding some of the cookies to the website. I usually just do those by special order. And also the body butter, right? You can also get the body butter from KimmyTreats.com. And here's what you get a chance to experience. KimmyTreats.com. If you're in Houston, you can go to Sunshine's Vegetarian Vegan Deli in the Med Center area on Old Spanish Trail, or just go to the website and order. We ship all over the country. So KimmyTreats.com. And of course, it's time to take care of your skin, right? It's going to be, the weather's changing. We may get a few more cool days, but what are you doing with your skin? Do you need somebody to help you figure out the right products? Do you need just an amazing facial? Well, you need Stephanie with Sohum Skin on the East End in Houston. Get in touch. That last slide has all the information you need. Stephanie Serlin with Sohum Skin. It's an experience. It's more than just a facial and just good products. If you want to chat with Stephanie, a call to make an appointment, the phone number is 713-428-1215. That's Sohum Skin on the East End of Houston. All right, so before we get out of here, we got to talk about those Houston Texans. All right. The Houston Texans went out to Vegas for their first trip to Las Vegas in the stadium to take on the Raiders. The Raiders were 1-4-1, 1-4 heading into that game. The Texans were 1-3-1, right? Because of the tie they had in the opening game of the season against the Colts. It started out pretty well, right? They looked pretty good in the first half. They were able to move the ball. You saw some things out of Davis Mills. He made some throws. They were not able to sustain it, okay? So I want to give you just some overall stats. So the Texans had 21 first downs. The Raiders had 25. Total net yards, 404. That's a lot. That's the best they've done offensively. The Raiders had 400. And in terms of their rushing, once again, Dameon Pierce looked really good in terms of rushing. They missed a field goal. Kami Fairburn missed a field goal. The final score was 38-20, right? 38-20. Time of possession was really close. It was less than a minute difference in terms of time of possession. Red zone efficiency was, if they have any of that, extra points made, trying to see their third down efficiency. They were penalized 3 times for 14 yards. And where's your third down efficiency? They were 9 of 15 for 60% on third down. They were 50% on fourth down, 1 of 2. And they won those battles except for fourth down. With the Raiders, they were perfect. They had 1 fourth down shot, and so they were 1 for 100%. They were 4 of 9 in third downs for 44%. So listen, in terms of individual stats, Dameon Pierce, 20 attempts, 92 yards. His longest was 22 yards and 4.6 average. Of course, Josh Jacobs, 20 attempts, 143 yards, 3 touchdowns. His longest was 15 yards. He averaged 7.2 yards a carry. The Texans continue to struggle with stopping run, right? The inability to stop the run. And I'm going to say this. We're going to hear from Lovey, and we're also going to hear from Jerry Hughes and Davis Mills. But, I remember doing camp that we were out there every day and listening to some of my colleagues talk about how great this front seven was going to be. Well, the front seven hasn't been great. They just haven't. And they've really struggled at the linebacker position. Christian Harris got his first start, his first action yesterday. He was injured during camp, and he was able to, let's see, where is Christian Harris? He had 1 tackle yesterday, but I think as he continues to get more playing time, get more live game action, you're going to see more out of him. I know that the Texans are surely counting on it. Here is Lovie Smith just talking about the game overall yesterday. Texans coach Lovie Smith.
He's Nico early, all the receivers, we spread the ball around Brandon. So we did a lot of good things. Then finished the way we need to. And late in the game when we needed another drive, some more points, The penalty, of course, was big on fourth down. And, of course, the interception for a touchdown was also. But offensively, we saw signs of what we can be. Defensively, just didn't play well enough. Kind of simple as that. It hurt when you lose Malik Collins, but I thought first half-wise we were in pretty good shape. But second half didn't do what we needed to. They got the run going. Of course, Jake was a heck of a back. But, breakdowns, tackles, just weren't physical enough at the end. There's a lot of things. Got to give him a lot of credit for that. It doesn't help when you miss a field goal, too. Left points on the board there. So they definitely deserve to win today. We've played a lot better than we did.
That was Lovie Smith, just kind of his overall talking about the game on yesterday. Of course, that was a pick six late in the game, which really puts the final like nail in the head for the Texans. That was late, and Davis talks about how he was trying to kind of force it because they were behind. They still had a shot, but they really needed something to happen. What they didn't need and what they could not afford was a pick six with less than 4 minutes to play. Here's Lovie talking about the offense, and then he was asked a question about what he said to the defense when he had called them to the sideline. Here's head coach Lovie Smith.
He was running the game plan. Thought we had a good game plan. We thought there's commitment to the run, and I think Damon had over 20 carries, so that helps a little bit. And we feel like we have good matchups with Nico and Brandon and the rest of the guys. Jordan Akins continues to shine have his moments. Just doing the things that we need to do to have success early on. But you still need to when you're scoring, you need touchdowns in some of those situations. Oh, you can imagine what we're saying. I mean, do I have to spell it out to you? We didn't play good enough defense today, so you can fill in the rest of the blanks.
Listen, like he said, do I have to spell it out for you? They did not play very good defense. Once again, the secondary leading tackles, Jonathan Nolan had finished with 10 tackles, 1 assist. Christian Kirksey, that's linebacker, finished with 9 tackles. Desmond King had 5 tackles. Derek Stingley had 5 tackles. Jalen Petrie had 4. They have got to get better play out of their linebackers. They're front 7 overall. They've got to get better play out of their front 7. Speaking of front 7, here's outside linebacker Jerry Hughes after the game Sunday against the Raiders.
Competitive, and all of a sudden it gets away from you again. What's happening?
We just got to finish. We understand that whenever you got your foot on the team's neck and they're at their home, you got to be able to finish in the second half. They came out. You got to tip their hats to them. They came out, played a tremendous second half. We didn't play Texans football, just not disciplined too many pre-snaps, just putting them in position to be successful instead of doing what we were doing in the first half, which was making them play behind the stick. So we got to understand that we're a young defense, but you can't you can't give a home team the advantage on early downs like that, and that's just what we did.
Jared, what did you think about what Jacobs was able to do and what makes him so tough to stop?
Yeah, he's got a good vision. He knows how to find the holes. We just got to do a better job of bringing all 11 bodies to the ball. We got to understand that it takes a group effort to take down a special back like that. And so whenever you're playing someone like that on Sunday, that's how it's got to be with all 11 hats flying around.
That was Jerry Hughes talking about Jacob, who had a great day on the ground. And listen, this Texans road facing running backs is not getting any easier in the coming weeks. So they're going to have to find a way to do something to plug up the run. And last but certainly not least is quarterback Davis Mills. He completed 28 of 41 passes on Sunday. He had 302 yards of offense. He was sacked once for -6 yards, 2 touchdowns. His longest is 39 yards. And he had an interception. Actually, it was a pick 6. So not just an interception, but an interception that turned into a touchdown. His passer rating was about 90, almost 96. On the other side of the field, Derek Carr completed 21 of 27 passes, 241 yards of total offense. He was sacked once. He threw 1 touchdown. His longest pass was 27 yards. That was to Renfro. And his passer rating was 116. Of course, I mentioned to you that Jacobs They had 3 rushing touchdowns. So, and of course the defensive touchdown on the pick 6. But here is Davis Mills after Sunday's loss to the Raiders.
I thought as an offense as a whole, I thought we played really well. Really only got stopped maybe 3 times, including that final drive. Made a big step up, converting third downs, and I thought that just allowed us to keep drives alive and move the ball. I thought we were efficient, just got to find a way to finish.
Davis, what did you feel like was the difference in particular on third down? I think at one point you were over 7 or 10. I'm not sure exactly what you finished with, but what did you feel like was the difference there?
I think we were seeing it really well. We had a little extra time this week with the bye to game plan third down, so everyone was on the same page. We had a lot of reps at it during the week, and we just went out and executed and did our jobs. The offensive line protected really well with their guys up front who were putting stress on us, but I thought we stood up to the challenge, and we were moving the ball on third down and getting conversions.
That was quarterback Davis Mills. There are some now who cover this Texans team who say, well, maybe quarterback isn't what they need to draft. They've got to get some help defensively. I think you've heard, if you followed this show, me say that this team has a lot of needs, but I disagree. Until you have identified your franchise quarterback, I think you get one every year. Until you find the one. I don't think you have the luxury, because quarterback play is such a big deal in this league. While we've seen some flashes from Davis Mills, he had some moments. He's inconsistent. He had not been making great mistakes, but when he made a mistake yesterday, it was really costly. And what you need from your quarterback in this very quarterback-driven league is somebody that can win you some games. And Davis Mills is not that guy yet. I don't know if he can be, but here's what I think. Until you find the guy that can be the one that wins you games, you get a quarterback. You just keep getting them. It's too important of a position. And because they've got some extra draft capital, they'll have 2 first-round picks next year. At this rate, those picks are going to be pretty good. But I think you can do more than one thing. Right? You don't have to abort the idea of getting a quarterback while you shore up your defense. You've got draft capital, and they're going to have cap space. So we're going to see what kind of magic Nick Caserio can work as they try to continue in this rebuild to make this team better. So for everyone who's saying the defense is awful, Levy should not be the coordinator, he should hire somebody. Okay, so he hires a defensive coordinator. It's the same people. They've got a talent deficit. And I think that's the thing that people need to recognize. All right, the Texans are home next Sunday. They play host to the Tennessee Titans. That's a division game. The Titans are 4-2. Of course, the Texans are 1-4-1. The Titans are coming off a loss at Buffalo. Is that right? Let me go back. Yes. No, the Titans beat the Colts this past weekend. I had it wrong. Let's do this. That's the wrong week. I'm getting there. So here are the Titans. So yeah, most recently they opened the season with a loss to Buffalo, but they won on Sunday. They defeated the Colts 19-10. So they are, headed into Houston for a division game. It's a 3:00 start, a 3:15 start at NRG Stadium. And perhaps Houston can get back to, can get in the win column, but they've got to work on some stuff. They're going to have to be able to plug up some of these holes, and defensively, like Levy said, they just didn't play well enough defensively to win. So that's what's happening with your Texans. The Houston Rockets are it's early in the regular season. Follow me on all of my social platforms so that you can hear about what's happening with the Rockets. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and I will have updates for you. The World Series starts on Friday. That's October the 28th. Game 1 and Game 2 are in Houston at the Juice Box. I will be there live and in person. We'll do some stuff heading up to that. And so I just want to encourage you to listen, get ready. But here's even beyond the World Series, which I'm super excited about. Early voting in Texas has started. Early voting in other parts of the country have started too. If you are registered to vote, you need to vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but what I will say is vote your values. You've got to go vote. It's very important. Think about the policies, find out for yourself. Don't just listen to the ads on television. Most of those are inaccurate, in my opinion. They're not really telling you the whole truth, but it's not hard to find out what are the real issues and where do the candidates stand and what are the policies that affect and impact me and my family and my community, what matters to me. What do these policies mean for my values and the life I want for me and my family? That's what I encourage you to do as you make your way to the polls. You've got to vote. It's not okay to sit on the sidelines. You have got to vote. And speaking of not sitting on the sidelines, make sure you drop your information either in the chat where you are watching this show live, or you can email me, kim@kimydavis.com, so that I can add you to my list about things that are going on, things that are coming up. Where is it? Let me change this so that you will see it. And it's where you can email me. Nope, that's not it. It's here. Kim@KimYDavis. And let me hear from you. All right. So there is my email address, kim@kimydavis.com. I want to include you on my list. I have some great things coming up. If you want to know about, I've had some of you say, I want to start a podcast. How do I do it? Email me. I have different programs. I'm going to be creating a course in the next couple of weeks. If you want to jump on a call with me to talk about things in your business as it relates to leadership or as it relates to communications, make sure that you do that. And the way that we can keep in touch is if you send me your email and make sure that you tell me your interest, I'll reach back out to you and we'll figure out some time to connect and ways that I can help you. So remember, while I do sports, this is my jam. I have a whole communications and media company where I do consulting, I do keynote speaking, and I do media training. So if those are some concerns or some things that you're interested in, let me hear from you. Also, remember, please do support all of our sponsors. Our title sponsor for this month is Affordable Painters with Hillary Como. He is your man. That is the company for all of your painting needs. He does commercial. They do commercial. They do residential. Whatever you need, he's your guy. Affordable Painters. Hillary Como. Be sure you tell him you heard about it on Chalk Talk. The number for more information is 281-657-5518. Remember also that you can go into HEB and get your Jinka or go to ilovejinka.com. And Kimmy Treats. Don't forget about Kimmy Treats. Go to kimmytreats.com. Order some popcorn, some snacks, get your body butter. Start preparing for holidays. We're coming out with a subscription box in the next few weeks. So make sure that you are paying attention. If that's something you're interested in, drop me a note as well. Kim@KimYDavis.com. We got you covered, right? We got you covered. Listen, as always, thanks for being a part of Chalk Talk. If you're not vaccinated, here's the encouragement. Here's the thing to do. Make sure that you get vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated for COVID, make sure that you get vaccinated. If you're registered to vote, make sure you vote. Go ahead and vote early. Get it out of the way. Get it done. I plan to vote today and be done with it and get it out of the way so that on election day, I don't have to worry about something coming up. But if you can't vote early, vote election day, just make sure that you vote. And remember, above everything, do something kind for somebody else and do something kind for somebody else. Thanks for being a part of Chalk Talk. Make sure you share the video and drop me an email so that you can get on one of my lists. Have a great, great week. I'll see you next Tuesday right here on Chalk Talk and across all my platforms in the meantime. Have a great week, everybody.